Hey, hey y'all, how you doing? So I didn't tell anybody that I was going on tonight. I didn't know pretty much up until the last few minutes that I would be going on tonight. But I had an idea. I had an idea that I might be, and I just kind of needed to sort a few things out before I did. It's real casual tonight, real informal. Um, I'm gonna try and utilize some of the new gifts and technology and whatnot that are here, but I'm also kind of taking it back to the old school. What's happening, Alex? Good to see you, man. How things going with you? Um, but I'm also kind of taking it back to the old school. I'm gonna do things a little bit the way that we did a while ago. One of the things that's going to be changing, I'm just going to kind of blend the pre-read into story time with Julian. So what's going to happen is when the live happens, which will typically be around 9:30, we'll rah rah chit chat. We'll do our little episode of the pre-read, and then I'm going to keep the stream going even while I put a breaker in there. So there might be a 5 minute break, might be a 10 minute break, whatever is necessary, and then the startup will come on to let you know how long until story time. So I'm going to make a point to keep the stream all together. But then what's ultimately going to happen is the story time with Julian episode will be separated from the pre-read episode. Story time with Julian will go live. Not live, but an edited version of it will be posted on YouTube. The live version will stay up for a while. Edited version will be posted on YouTube. The live version will come down. The live will not live on Facebook. And then we're gonna figure out what the home for the pre-read is gonna be. There's some things happening. Donathan Ronan Cheagle Long. Absolutely not, sir. Good boy. Um, it's good to see y'all. I see Mimi. I see Homie Lou. I see Gina. Gina, you ain't going nowhere. You know what I'm talking about. You're not going nowhere. As a matter of fact, Gina, I need you to do me a favor and send me some photographs of some of your favorite works, some of your best bracelets. Um, it's for science. All right. So I see Terry Meredith is here, which is good because one of the things I'm going to be reading tonight is actually one of her works. But before we get into the actual read, again, I'm not going to be too strict about exactly what time I start tonight. We all need to chill, right? It's not just me. I mean, if it is just me, then this will just be my therapy and my self-care. But I needed a vibe. I needed, as my friend likes to say, to chill regular. Um, Erica Yolita, yes, Donnie was in fact doing some dirt for me to say his full government. Donathan Ronan Cheagle Long, absolutely. Um, but for those of you who don't know, I am currently based in Louisville, and so my city is a tripwire right now. It's a tripwire for, I mean, it's already been a powder keg, a tripwire, whatever the metaphor is, but um, for unrest, for some chaos. When I say chaos, I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about their responses to us. Um, I'm talking about I'm talking about this group of racist idiots marching around with guns, armored so heavily that I can't tell the difference between them and the cops. And they have this ridiculous name. I was laughing with a friend about it earlier today. The Boogaloo Boys, with AR-15 strapped to their backs and pistols strapped to their hips, and a name that sounds like they're the backup band for Eddie Murphy back in the 80s. Really? The Boogaloo Boys? Yo, racism, like the Clan 3.0's branding is beyond me. And I am a brand expert. And I'm really trying to figure out, like, how are you recruiting? The fuck do the Boogaloo Boys do to recruit? Yeah, those vids are real. Yeah, I see Mimi was asking, are those videos real? Yeah, Those dudes marching through the city, that's real. That's happening. And they are, in some instances, standing right next to the cops. And the cops do nothing about them. But when they harass citizens, the cops tell them move along, but say nothing about the fucking breakdancing crew, the Boogaloo Shrimp, the Boogaloo Boys. It's real crazy. But that's not why we're here. We're here tonight as a respite from all of that. And I am Alex Hardy said powered, but you know what? I forgot. There's a reason why this is here. This is my favorite quote of the night. Everybody, this is what you have to top. Top that quote. That's the quote of the night right there thus far. Yo. But we're here as a respite from all of that. And a couple of things have changed over the last few weeks with STWJ. Ding, TM. One of the things that has changed is I've actually planned out through November what I intend to read. Some of that will change, but and I've even got a special event planned for the end of November. Oh, I'm so geeked. Y'all don't even understand. Special event planned for the week before Thanksgiving. So yeah, stay tuned on that. But yeah, I plan out what I intend to read. I've gone through the library of books that we have here for Storytime with Julian. I've selected stories. I've looked at the past readings and tried to juxtapose based on what we know of certain authors, who I think is going to feel right for a certain time. And a lot of that has come as a result of some recent changes and some conflicts and some difficulties. The effort of that is to make it possible for the staff of Storytime, my editors, the editorial folks that work with me to try and make this thing work from week to week, gives them a chance to read through to help me make sure that the tone and the voice and the language of story, that we're prepared for it, that it is a worthy trade-off. So while I'm still doing cold reads, the rest of the staff has read and is kind of given me a heads up on what we're going to read for the most part, wherever possible. Sometimes it's difficult to get copies of the reading to them. But even that, we're working to do that more and more in advance. So I already had readings planned for tonight. Tonight's readings were supposed to be from, we're going to crack the spine on a book that I hadn't opened yet, Richard Wright's collection of short stories and essays. Actually, it's a collection of like essay, a novella, and 2 not so short stories. But Richard Wright can be really heavy. Richard Wright is some of that reading, you know what I'm saying? Like it's going to be a little bit more academic. In fact, one of the readings that was chosen for tonight was an essay. Is an essay on, guess what, blackness, because it's Richard Wright. But I decided not to do that. So instead, because I needed to chill, I'm going to read my 2 favorite short stories tonight. March 21st, 2020, I opened up my dusty ass laptop and fired up Facebook and started the first episode of Storytime with Julian, a name that I made up on the spot because I was like, what am I doing? I'm reading stories. Who am I? I'm Julian. Storytime with Julian. There you go. Bing, bang, boom. And the story that I read was N.K. Jemisin's The Ones Who Stay and Fight. It became my favorite story. I absolutely adore that story. On April 14th, 2020, I had a different setup. The pre-read was an official thing. It had a name. The purple lights, or the pinkish purple lights, had become a part of the brand. Whereas before I was just trying to make the lights not so bright because they were making my camera glare. It became a part of how we do things. This screen behind me, by that time, used to play this wonderful swirling pattern of pink and blue and purple hues. And on that day, I read for the first time Terry A. Meredith's story, The Library. Now, I read it for the first time for you all, but for me, I had already read it and it had already become my new favorite short story. And so tonight I'm reading my two favorite short stories, and I'm revisiting the early times of Storytime with Julian. And one of the favorites, one of the favorite genres here at Storytime with Julian is magical realism. We talk about magical realism a lot, and the two stories that we're going to be reading in a little bit, I would say, fall squarely in the category of magical realism. The Ones Who Stay and Fight is a beautiful takeoff and answer to, and perhaps to a certain degree, tribute to The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelos. But The Ones Who Stay and Fight presents a world. It's a world that I really wish I could be in right now. It's a world with just Black people, beautiful Black people, celebrating one another, celebrating themselves, celebrating each other, celebrating the shared culture, an inherited culture, a created culture, co-created culture. And so, but it also shows that there is a work that has to be done in order to create and preserve and maintain that culture. For those of you who have heard multiples of Terry A. Meredith's stories and me, I have been blessed to have read, I think, almost all of them that exist, if not all of them that exist. Now, she might have snuck around and snuck some around my shoulder that I ain't get a chance to read yet, that are out there floating in the existence. But I have been blessed to serve as her editor, and so I get the opportunity to read a number of her stories in advance. And for those of you who have heard me perform and read these stories, it looks like Erica Yolita Goodman has a Kovatar. Did you get a Kovatar, an avatar from the COVID thing? Is that what that is? That's what it looks like. I had one done. It was cool, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. Anyhow, but for those of you all who have heard me read a number of the storytime of the Terry A. Meredith stories during the pre-read and Storytime with Julian, you'll know that she has created a world, maybe several worlds, that work in this space of magical realism. And one of the things that I love about the worlds that Terry creates is that in those worlds, people do what has to be done for us to be number one. I just quoted Digital Underground. So yeah, I'm gonna do what has to be done for us to be number one. And you ain't never heard nothing this funky, son. That's what that was. But in her worlds, people do the work, the ugly work, the gutter work, the gritty work. Her worlds may occur for some as utopic Black experiences, but they are not without effort. There is no illusion in the world that Terry creates. You got to do something to get that world. So yeah, that's one of the things that I love about her worlds. And in the story that I'm going to read tonight, The Library, she gives a glimpse into the work that had to be done to get to the world that we get to share in that story. Why am I talking about all this? Because right now, let me back up. There's a concept, there's a theory called magical thinking. It's used in literature, it's used in social theory, it's used in psychology. It's often referred to in child psychology. Magical thinking is, children engage in magical thinking. It's the idea that if you speak something, if you wish something, if you hope something, you can make it happen. It will just happen because it will. Children get confused or terrified because they will say something like, I hate you, I wish you were dead. And then if someone dies, they will honestly believe that they willed that to happen. Magical thinking is, when you talk about it too much, it gets real dicey for people like me, people of faith, because as a Christian, truth is, if I'm gonna be honest, I engage in magical thinking all the time. I do. Now, magical thinking is typically among adult folks kind of frowned upon, and that's because magical thinking tends to lend itself to inaction. Magical thinking will have you. This is an example that a friend of mine who works in higher education shared with me actually earlier today. Magical thinking will have you walk into the kitchen and see a sock on the floor and say, "There's a sock on the floor. It should be picked up. I'm sure it'll get off the floor. I'm sure somebody will pick it up." And then the next person who lives in the household will walk into the kitchen and see the sock on the floor and believe the same thing. I'm sure somebody will pick it up. And then the third person, and let's say you got a roommate, walks into the kitchen, the sock is still on the floor. And then the next day you walk back in the kitchen and the sock is still on the floor, but you're convinced somebody's going to pick it up. Sock doesn't belong there on the kitchen floor. Somebody's obviously going to take care of that. They're going to pick that up. And everyone keeps doing that and nobody picks up the sock. And in what magical world does the sock just come up off the floor without somebody picking it up? Some action has to be taken in order for that sock to be relieved of its resting place on the floor. That is not reality. But when you start to subscribe to that, you begin to believe that things will change without you working to affect that change. And that can be really dangerous. And that's one of the things that actually gets on my last nerve when I am heavily involved in the church is sometimes people forget to put legs on their faith. And they say things like, oh, I know the Lord's going to work it out. Well, yeah, he is. Most likely by creating circumstances for you to be active in, wherein your actions through faith will help change the circumstance. But miracles happen. And, we've got a spiritual and historical record of magic things occurring. The unexplained phenomena of the universe. Sure, I'll accept that. But if I'm praying for the Lord to make a way, my assumption should be that after he makes that way, I am going to take that way. If the path is made clear, I shouldn't expect the golden chariot to descend from the heavens and run me down that path. I'm going to have to get to walking. Now, I might then exercise my faith by saying, I'm going to take this long, difficult walk, but in taking this long, difficult walk, I'm going to trust that God's going to give me the energy and help to delay the aches and the pains in my body. But I still got to do the work of that walk. I gotta do that part. And even in my trusting that God's going to give me the energy, it's not that he's just going to rain down heavenly Gatorade and rain down Red Bulls from heaven on me. I mean, yeah, the Bible does have an historical record of manna from heaven, and we have no idea what that substance is. There's actually no way to define that substance, but sure, there's that. And you could hold out and wait for that. By the same token, if you're praying for energy, and the Lord happens to put a mulberry bush along that long, difficult path, it might make sense to stop and eat the mulberries. And if he puts a stream alongside that path, it might make sense to stop and drink from the stream rather than to engage in this sort of magical thinking that the Lord's just gonna provide, without having any sense of what those provisions might be or look like. I'm really not trying to preach at you. I'm saying that this is One of the things that often frustrates me about the faith that I practice is that so many of the other practitioners in this faith say, I believe the Lord's going to work it out. We are watching the unfolding of one of the most tumultuous and difficult times in this nation's history, perhaps since slavery. We are watching an autocrat in training work every machination possible to stack every deck to steal an election that he will almost certainly lose if it is played fairly. We are watching totalitarianism take root in the streets of our cities. We are watching police openly declare their unity and solidarity with racist thugs. We are watching, literally, we are witnessing the reading of indictments that place the valuation of an imaginary harm on a white family over the actual murder of a black woman. And for those of you who haven't gotten clear on the details of that indictment, the bullets that his name escapes me already, and I've made a point of saying it, but that asshole, the bullets that he fired actually endangered two black neighbors. They are not mentioned. The charges that he faces are only for the white neighbor who was potentially endangered. So we are witnessing all of this unfold, and a lot of us are saying somebody's got to do something. Somebody's going to have to, Congress going to have to, the Senate needs to. When I was a child back in the 80s, Lord help me, I'm old. But when I was a child back in the 80s, back when I still kind of gave a damn about Jesse Jackson made a point to remind me and all the other little brown children in my school, I am somebody. Every time I feel myself beginning to utter that somebody has to do something, I hear the echoes of young Julian saying, I am somebody. Because, y'all, we are the somebodies we are waiting for. Nobody's going to pick up this sock but us. It is not profitable or beneficial for us to wait on the golden chariot to take us down the path. We can't open our mouth and expect Gatorade to come from the heavens to refresh us. We're going to have to pick the berries from the bush. We're going to have to walk down the path. We're going to have to pick up the fucking sock. Those are the ways that magical thinking do not serve us well. However, daring to create a world where Black folk are celebrated and ubiquitous and loved universally, daring to create a world where Black folk got the message, rose up, did the work, and made the world what we need it to be. Now that kind of magical thinking, oh, that's very beneficial. Daring to imagine a world where we exist in the full strength of us. Daring to imagine a world where we are undiluted, raw, pure, uncut greatness. Where the excellence is not dampened or tamped down by lowered expectations or by some other caste that's in the hegemony that says We define great, and therefore what you produce is sub that. Daring to see that world, to write that world, to create that world, to give that world life through words, to breathe breath into it with multiple adjectives, that kind of magical thinking, I fully support. And so tonight, we're going to do a little bit of magical thinking. I'm going to do a little bit of magical reading. I'm going to take us to some different times and some different places where the magic worked. Where the magic worked because we are magic. We are magic. So if you want the magic to work, get to work. It's the only way it happens. Nobody else is picking up the sock. The pre-read is over. We're going to go into the first story of the night, The Ones Who Stay and Fight. This is by N.K. Jemisin. She is an amazing fiction author. She has multiple award-winning books out. She has a trilogy of novels currently out. This was my first introduction to her work. I picked up this book because I couldn't get past the cover. I couldn't get past that cover. Look at that. Look at that beauty. Look at that grace. Look at that power. So I picked this book up, and on March 24th, 2020, I said, we're going to read through this whole book, and we're just going to start with this story. And I just started reading. Had no idea that I was about to fall in love. I hope you enjoy it too. I hope you fall into a little something. I hope it stirs and awakens the magic within you. We're going to turn on the light, and let's begin. It's the day of good birds in the city of Halat. The day is a local custom, silly and random as so many local customs can be, and yet beautiful by the same token. It has little to do with birds, a fact about which locals cheerfully laugh because that too is how local customs work. It is a day of fluttering and flight regardless, where pennants of brightly dyed silk plume forth from every window, and delicate drones of copper wire and feather glass made for this day and flown on no other, waft and buzz on the wind. Even the monorail cars trail stylized flamingo feathers from their rooftops, although these are made of feather glass too, since real flamingos do not fly at the speed of sound. Halat sits at the confluence of 3 rivers and an ocean. This places it within the migratory path of several species of butterfly and hummingbird as they travel north to south and back again. At the day's dawning, the children of the city come forth, most wearing wings made for them by parents and kind old aunties. Not all aunties are actually aunties, but in Halat, anyone can earn auntyhood. This is a city where numberless aspirations can be fulfilled. Some wings are organza stitched onto school backpacks. Some are quilted cotton stuffed with dried flowers and clipped to jacket shoulders. Some few have been carefully glued together from dozens of butterflies' discarded wings, but only those butterflies that died naturally, of course. Thus adorned, children who can run through the streets do so, leaping off curbs and making whooshing sounds as they pretend to fly. Those who cannot run instead ride special drones, belted and barred and double-checked for safety, which generally bounce them into the air. It's only a few feet, though it feels like the height of the sky. But this is no awkward dystopia where all are forced to conform. Adults who refuse to give up their childhood joys wear wings too, though theirs tend to be more abstractly constructed. Some are invisible. And those who follow faiths which forbid the emulation of beasts, or those who simply do not want wings, need not wear them. They are all honored for this choice, as much as the soarers and flutterers themselves. For without contrast, how does one appreciate that the different forms that joy can take? Oh, and there is such joy here, friend. Street vendors sell tiny custard filled cakes shaped like jewel beetles, and people who've waited all year wolf them down while sucking air to cool their tongues. Artisans offer cleverly mechanized paper hummingbirds for passersby to throw. The best ones blur as they glide. As the afternoon of the day grows long, Mhalat's farmers arrive, invited as always to be honored alongside the city's merchants and technologers. By all three groups' efforts does the city prosper. But when aquifers and rivers dip too low, the farmers move to other lands and farm there, or change from corn husking to rice paddying and fishery feeding. The management of soil and water and chemistry are intricate arts, as you know, but here they have been perfected. Here in Mhalat there is no hunger, not among the people, and not for the migrating birds and butterflies when they dip down for a taste of savory nectar. And so, farmers are particularly celebrated on the Day of Good Birds. The parade winds through the city, farmers ducking their gazes or laughing as their fellow citizens offer salute. Here is a portly woman, waving a hat of chicken feathers that someone has gifted her. There is a reedy man in a coverall, nervously plucking at the brooch he bears, carved and lacquered to look like a ladybug. He has made it himself, and hopes others will think it fine. They do. And here, this woman, tall and strong and bare of arm, her sleek brown scalp dotted with implanted silver studs, wearing a fine uniform of storm cloud damask. See how she moves through the crowd, grinning with them, helping up a child who has fallen. She encourages their cheers and their delight, speaking to this person in one language and that person in another. Mhalat is a city of polyglots. She reaches the front of the crowd and immediately spies the reedy man's ladybug, whereupon, with delighted eyes and smile, she makes much of it. She points, and others see it too, which makes the reedy man blush terribly. But there is only kindness and genuine pleasure in the smiles. And gradually, the reedy man stands a little taller, walks with a wider stride. He has made his fellow citizens happier, and there is no finer virtue by the customs of this gentle, rich land. The slanting afternoon sun stretches golden over the city, reflected light sparkling along its mica-flecked walls and laser-faceted embossings. A breeze blows up from the sea, tasting of brine and minerals, so fresh that a spontaneous cheer wafts along the crowded parade route. Young men by the waterfront, busily stirring great vats of spiced mussels and pans of rice and peas and shrimp, cook faster, for it is said in Mhalat, the smell of the sea wakes up the belly. Young women on street corners bring out sitars and synthesizers and big wooden drums to get the crowd dancing the young men's way. When people stop, too hot or thirsty to continue, there are glasses of fresh tamarind lime juice. Elders staff the shops that sell this, though they also give away the juice if a person is much in need. There are always souls needing drum beats and tamarind in Mhalat. Joyous! It is a steady joy that fills this city, easy to speak of, but though I have tried, it is most difficult to describe accurately. I see the incredulity on your face. The difficulty lies partly in my lack of words and partly in your lack of understanding, because you have never seen a place like Mhalat, and because I am myself only an observer, not privileged to visit. Thus, I must try harder to describe it so that you might embrace it too. How can I illuminate the people of Mhalat? You have seen how they love their children and how they honor honest, clever labor. You have perhaps noted their many elders, for I have mentioned them in passing, In Mhalat, people live long and richly with good health for as long as fate and choice and medicine permits. Every child knows opportunity. Every parent has a life. There are some who go without housing, but they can have an apartment if they wish. Here, where the spaces under bridges are swept daily and benches have light padding for comfort, they do not live badly. If these itinerant folk dwell also in delusions, they are kept from weapons or places that might do them harm, where they risk disease or injury. They are prevented or cared for if matters get out of hand. We shall speak more of the caretaker soon. And so, this is Mhalat, a city whose inhabitants simply care for one another. That is a city's purpose, they believe, not merely to generate revenue or energy or products, but to shelter and nurture the people who do these things. What have I forgotten to mention? Oh, it is the thing that will seem most fantastic to you, friend. The variety. The citizens of Mhalat are so many and so wildly different in appearance and origin and development. People in this land come from many others, and it shows in sheens of skin and kink of hair and plumpness of lip and hip. If one wanders the streets where the workers and artisans do their work, there are slightly more people with dark skin. If one strolls the corridors of an executive tower, there are a few extra done in pale. There is history rather than malice in this, and it is still being actively, intentionally corrected. Because the people of Mhalat are not naive believers in good intentions as the solution to all ills. No, there are no worshippers of mere tolerance here, not desperate grovelers for that grudging pittance of respect which is diversity. Mhalatians are learned enough to understand what must be done to make the world better, and pragmatic enough to actually enact it. Does that seem wrong to you? It should not. The trouble is that we have a bad habit, encouraged by those concealing ill intent, of insisting that people already suffering should be afflicted with further unnecessary pain. This is the paradox of tolerance, the treason of free speech. We hesitate to admit that some people are just fucking evil and need to be stopped. This is Mhalat after all, and not that barbaric America. This is not Omalas, a fat tick of a tick of a city fat and happy with its head buried in a tortured child. My accounting of Mhalat is an homage, true, but there's nothing for you to fear, friend. And so, how does Mhalat exist? How can such a city possibly survive, let alone thrive? Wealthy with no poor, advanced with no war, a beautiful place where all souls know themselves beautiful. It cannot be, you say. Utopia? How banal. It is a fairy tale, a thought exercise. Crabs in a barrel, dog eat dog, oppression Olympics. It would not last, you insist. It could never be in the first place. Racism is natural, so natural that we call it tribalism to insinuate that everyone does it. Sexism is natural, and homophobia is natural, and religious intolerance is natural, and greed is natural, and cruelty is natural, and savagery and fear and impossible, you hiss, your fists slowly clenching at your sides. How dare you? What have these people done to make you believe such lies? What are you doing to me to suggest that it is possible? How dare you? How dare you? Oh, friend, I have offended. My apologies. Yet, how else can I convey a lot to you when even the thought of a happy, just society raises your ire so? Though I confess I am puzzled as to why you are so angry. It's almost as though you feel threatened by the very idea of equality. almost as if some part of you needs to be angry, needs unhappiness and injustice. But do you? Do you believe, friend? Do you accept the day of good birds, the city, the joy? No? Then let me tell you one more thing. Remember the woman, so tall and brown, so handsome and bald, so loving in her honest pleasure, so fine in her storm cloud gray? She is one of many wearing the same garb, committed to the same purpose. Follow her now as she leaves behind the crowd and walks along the biofiber paved side streets into the shadows. Beneath a skyscraper that floats a few meters off the ground. Oh, it's perfectly safe. Halat has controlled gravity for generations now. She stops. There, two others wait. One Gethin, one male, both clad in gray damask too. They are also bald, their studded heads agleam. They greet each other warmly, with hugs where those are welcomed. They are no one special, just some of the many people who work to ensure the happiness and prosperity of their fellow citizens. Think of them as social workers, if you like. Their role is no different from that of social workers anywhere. Word has come of a troubling case, and this is why they gather, to discuss it and make a difficult decision. There are wonders far greater than a few floating skyscrapers in Mhalat, you see. And one of these is the ability to bridge the distances between possibilities, what we would call universes. Anyone can do it, but almost no one tries. That is because, due to a quirk of space time, the only world that people in Mhalat can reach is our own. And why would anyone from this glorious place want to come anywhere near our benighted hellscape? Again, you seem offended. Friend, you have no right to be. In any case, there is little danger of travel. Even Mhalat has not successfully found a way to reduce the tremendous energy demands of macro scale planar transversal. Only wave particles can move from our world to theirs and back again. Only information. Who would bother? Ah, but you forget. This is a land where no one hungers and no one is left ill, no one lives in fear, and even war is almost forgotten. In such a place, buoyed by luxury of safety and comfort, people may seek knowledge solely for knowledge's sake. But some knowledge is dangerous. Halat has been a worse place after all in its past. Not all of its people, so disparate in origin and custom and language, came together entirely by choice. The city had a different civilization once, one which might not have upset you so. Poor thing, they're there. Remnants of that time dot the land all around the city, ruined and enormous and half broken. Here is a bridge. There, a great truck on its back, a rusting, curved-sided thing that ancient peoples referred to by that exotic term, missile. In the distance, the skeletal remains of another city, once just as vast as Mhalat, but never so lovely. Works such as these encumber all the land, no more and no less venerable to the Mhalatians than the rest of the landscape. Indeed, every young citizen must be reminded of these things upon coming of age and told carefully curated stories of their nature and purpose. When the young citizens learn this, it is a shock, almost incomprehensible, in that they literally lack the words to comprehend such things. The languages spoken in Mhalat were once our languages. Yes, for this world was once our world. It was not so much parallel as the same. Back then, you might still recognize the languages, but what would puzzle you is how they speak or how they don't. Oh, some of this will be familiar to you in concept at least, like terms for gender that mean neither he nor she, and the condemnation of words meant to slur and denigrate. And yet, you will puzzle over the Halation's choice to retain descriptive terms for themselves like kinky haired, or fat, or deaf. But these are just words, friend. Don't you see? Without the attached contempt, such terms have no more meaning than if horses could proudly introduce themselves as palomino or miniature or hairy footed. Difference was never the problem in and of itself. And Halations still have differences with each other of opinion and otherwise. Of course they do. They are people. But what shocks the young citizens of Halat is the realization that once those differences of opinion involved differences in respect. That once value was ascribed to some people and not others. That once humanity was acknowledged for some and not others. It is the day of good birds in Halat, where every soul matters, and even the idea that some might not is an anathema. This, then, is why the social workers of Halat have come together, because someone has breached the barrier between worlds. A citizen of Halat has listened on equipment you would not recognize, but which records minute quantum perturbations excited by signal wavelengths to our radio. He has watched our television. He has followed our social media, played our videos, liked our selfies. We are remarkably primitive compared to Halat. Time flows the same in both worlds, but people there have not wasted themselves on crushing one another into submission, and this makes a remarkable difference. So anyone can do it. Build a thing to traverse the worlds, like building your own ham radio. Easy. Which is why there is an entire underground industry in Halat. Ah, crime. Now you believe a little more. Built around information gleaned from the strange alien world that is our own. Pamphlets are written and distributed. Art and whispers are traded. The forbidden is so seductive, is it not? Even here, where only things that cause harm to others are called evil, the information gleaners know what they do is wrong. They know this is what destroyed the old cities. And indeed, they are horrified at what they hear through the speakers, see on the screens. They begin to perceive that ours is a world where the notion that some people are less important than others has been allowed to take root and grow until it buckles and cracks the foundations of our humanity. How could they? The gleaners exclaim of us. Why would they do such things? How can they just leave people to starve? Why do they not listen when that one complains of disrespect? What does it mean that these ones have been assaulted and no one cares? Who treats other people like that? And yet, even amid their shock, they share the idea. The evil spreads. So the social workers of Halat stand, talking now over the body of a man. He is dead, early, unwilling, with a beautifully crafted pike jammed through his spine and heart. The spine to make it painless, the heart to make it quick. This is only one of the weapons carried by the social workers, and they prefer it because the pike is silent, because there was no shot or ricochet, no crackle or sizzle, no scream. No one else will come to investigate. The disease has taken one poor victim, but it need not claim more. In this manner is the contagion contained. In a moment. In a moment. Beside the man's body crouches a little girl. She's curly-haired, plump, blind, brown, tall for her age. Normally a boisterous child, she weeps now over her father's death, and her tears run hot with the injustice of it all. She heard him say, "I'm sorry." She heard the social worker show the only mercy possible, but she isn't old enough to have been warned of the consequences of breaking the law, or to understand that her father knew those consequences and accepted them. So to her, what has happened has no purpose or reason. It is a senseless, monstrous, and impossible thing called murder. "I'll get back at you," she says between sobs. "I'll make you die the way you made him die." This is an unthinkable thing to say. Something is very wrong here. She snarls, "How dare you? How dare you?" The social workers exchange looks of concern. They are contaminated themselves, of course. It's permitted and frankly unavoidable in their line of work. Impossible to dam a flood without getting wet. There are measures in place. The studs on their scalps? Well, in our own world, those who volunteered to work in leper colonies were once venerated and imprisoned with them. The social workers know, therefore, that for incomprehensible reasons, this girl's father has shared the poison knowledge of our world with her. An uncontaminated citizen of Halat would have asked, why? After the original shock and horror, because they would expect a reason. There would be a reason. But this girl has already decided that the social workers are less important than her father, and therefore the reason doesn't matter. She believes that the entire city is less important than one man's selfishness. Poor child. She's nearly septic with the taint of our world. Nearly. But then our social worker, the tall brown one who got 100 strangers to smile at a handmade ladybug, crouches and takes the child's hand. What? This surprises you? Did you think this would end with the cold-eyed slaughter of a child? There are other options. And this is Halat, friend, where even a pitiful, diseased child matters. They will keep her in quarantine and reach out to her for many days. If the girl accepts the hand, listens to them, they will try to explain why her father had to die. She's early for the knowledge, but something must be done. Do you see? Then, together, they will bury him, with their own hands if they must, in the beautiful garden that they tend between caseloads. This garden holds all the Halatians who broke the law. Just because they have to die as deterrence doesn't mean they can't be honored for sacrifice. But there is only one treatment for this toxin once it gets in the blood: fighting it. Tooth and nail, spear and claw, up close and brutal. No quarter can be given, no parole, no debate. The child must grow and learn and become another social worker fighting an endless war against an idea, but she will live and help others and find meaning in that if she takes the woman's hand. Does this work for you at last, friend? Does the possibility of harsh enforcement add enough realism? Are you better able to accept this post-colonial utopia now that you see it has bloody teeth? Ah, but they did not choose this battle. The people of Halat today, their ancestors did when they spun lies and ignored conscience in order to profit from others' pain. Their greed became a philosophy, a religion, a series of nations, all built on blood. Halat has chosen to be better, but it too must perform blood sacrifice to keep true evil at bay. And now we come to you, my friend, my little soldier. See what I've done? So insidious, these little thoughts both going both ways along the quantum path. Now, perhaps you will think of halat and wish. Now you might finally be able to envision a world where people have learned to love as they learned in our world to hate. Perhaps you will speak of halat to others and spread the notion farther still, like joyous birds migrating on trade winds. It's possible. Everyone, even the poor, even the lazy, even the undesirable, can matter. Do you see how just the idea of this provokes utter rage in some? That this infection defending itself, because if enough of us believe a thing is possible, then it becomes so. And then, who knows? War, maybe. The fire of fever and the purging scourge. No one wants that. But it is not the alternative. But is not the alternative to lie helpless, spotty, and blistered and heaving until we all die. So don't walk away. The child needs you too. Don't you see? You also have to fight for her. Now that you know she exists, or walking away is meaningless. Here, take my hand. Please. Good. Good. Now, let's get to work. And thus endeth the story. It is one of my favorite stories. It is in my top 2, right underneath the library. I love this story so much. I love this world. I love the work that Ms. Jemison has done in building out this magical world and then showing us that magic begins with work. Whatever your belief system might be, whatever magic you subscribe to, whether you call it God or science, whether it's Oshun or Jesus, or whether you just believe in a magic within yourself, now is the time to put that magic to work. All of it is as real as you make it when you work it. The magic within you is absolutely real when you put it to work. The God you have faith in and believe in demonstrates its realness, his or her realness, its realness, through the works that you do. That's how, even if I don't believe in your God, I can see a manifestation thereof, because you're walking in that belief. You're acting in that belief. That was a story full of magical thinking. Absolutely necessary magical thinking. And I needed to feel some of it, and I needed to share it with you. Not just because it's a beautiful story, but because there's a message in it, obviously. I took the liberty and the luxury of implanting a thought or two. It was by design from the very first question that I asked, because I need you to believe. But more importantly, I need you to act like you believe. Anybody want to share some thoughts on the story before I move on to the next one? April Wright damn near threw her shoe. At what? Are you watching on your phone or a big screen? Because if you're watching on your big screen, don't go breaking nothing. You might have that Apple Care or that Android love on your phone, but don't bust up no big screens. Saniqua, thank you so much. What a beautiful comment. I want to know what L Jack, what you talking about post-racial America. Good to see you though, bro, by the way. Good to see you in the place. You are more than welcome, Gina. Beautiful tribute, by the way. Yeah, N.K. Jemisin did her thing. And this story, legit, I don't care what else she writes. She's going to be in my top five forever for having written this story. Best believe. It's a constant rotation on that top five because it seems like every other story time I'm introduced to an author that I'm like, oh my gosh, like real talk. But I can't, I can't read that story and not be moved. That's why I wanted to share it with y'all. Doesn't it sound amazing? Doesn't it? So hold on a second. Let me real quick because it's not just about the sharing, but it's about making sure that you cop. The story, The Ones Who Stay and Fight, comes from this book here, How Long Till Black Future Month, which the title alone is dope, is it not? By N.K. Jemisin. Um, please, I don't know if we've got our admin staff on deck because I didn't tell them I was doing a show tonight. So if the admin staff is on deck, please, if you can put up a link to where folk can buy this book. We like to support our local bookstores. We like to support Black bookstores. But even if that is somehow not possible on account of some, you know, messed up situation, we want to support our Black authors. So find a way, please, ma'am, please, sir, find a way to make this book your own. If you like that story like I did, trust and believe there are several others that are equally beautiful, equally powerful. And I want you to get with it. Give me just one moment, please. I got to do a little bit of infrastructure work. But like I said, today is it's a little bit regular. Let's see here. You hear the clicky clacky on my typewriter? That's not my typewriter, my keyboard. I like mechanical keyboards because when I write, it gives me that feel that the actual word for the stroke of a typewriter key is the same word that they use for the sound that a gun makes when it clicks back, the report. I like the report of the keys striking. It gives me a certain satisfaction that makes the writing that much easier. Boodoo-doo, boodoo. I am about to read for your hearing my absolute favorite short story on the planet. And that's a powerful thing because the story that I just read to you is thank you so much. I see that a purchase site will be up in just a minute. Um but what's coming up is you're absolutely welcome. What's coming up is my absolute favorite story on the planet, and it is my favorite. And that's saying a lot because, like I said, you just heard what used to be my favorite short story. This one tops that, and it tops it because it surprises me. Even after multiple readings of it, and I said I think in the first read that I did of this that I read this to my mom, and my mom absolutely loved it. My mom doesn't have a whole lot of tolerance um, for being read to necessarily. She, like most of you, is not an audiobook fan, but I think she's a fan of her son, so she lets me read to her from time to time. And she was certainly a fan of this story. And when I say fan, I mean engaged, asking questions about the characters, wanting to know more, having me go back and read certain lines from some of the characters. And so um, it is my pleasure and my honor to read for you The Library by Terry A. Meredith. And I just had to print this off because the book ain't out yet, but it's coming. And when it does, I absolutely expect that you all will support this amazing, amazing author. But here we go. We're about to read The Library. I approached the book enclosure with my granddaughter's hand clasped tightly in mine. Otherwise, she would run all around and through this place. The librarians didn't leave any margin for the unconscious, natural misbehaviors of children. Hell, they barely tolerated the misbehaviors of adults. What about this one, Jima? Maya asked excitedly, lunging forward to place her palm onto the pad. I pulled her firmly, just out of reach of it. You know you don't do that. Okay. She looked down to keep me from seeing the tears welling in her eyes. She was a sensitive child. I loved that about her. But it also worried me. The library didn't allow children to access the summary pads in the history section, and rightfully so. Many of the books had adult content. To tell you the truth, sometimes the audio summary wasn't very accurate as far as prepping you for everything that was going to be revealed in the stories. I placed my hand on the summary pad, still holding on to Maya's hand, closed my eyes, and felt the static shock that signaled a successful connection had been made. The disposable listening pod that's inserted into everyone's ear upon entry ensured that you could make your choices privately and without judgment. I listened to about 3 summaries, and although the narration was enticing, coming from a voice with a hint of gravel and the slightest showing of cashmere, it wasn't the book for me. Sorry, I whispered, and I pulled my hand away and broke the connection, immediately looking down at Maya and journeying a few enclosures over. I was nearly reading myself into the type of debt that you end up dying with, but I had to. We owed that. I know I did. Maya kicked at an offense on the carpet, visible only to her. That was just impatience. She was ready to get to the children's section. They had a play area in there, live readings and snacks. Maya loved coming to the library, but was too young to have any interest in the history section. She'd find herself here sooner than she could ever imagine. This one, G-Ma. I can feel it in my bones. Maya squealed, doing an adorable little shimmy while hugging herself and smiling up to me to prove that she really meant what she said. I saw him swiftly approach, his eyes trained on Maya. They had the most ominous looking guards for this to be a damned library. I stepped in front of my granddaughter and hissed, "Don't you fucking dare." I wish you would say something to her. I really wish you would. She is mine. The guard stood there for a minute and glanced over at the librarian, who held up her hand, palm facing us, to signal that she had everything under control. He walked back to his post. The history section was the only area of the library where you had to deal with this shit. Guards. For a fucking library. Books were rarely stolen. In fact, I couldn't remember the last time I'd read about a successful theft, especially from this section. Everyone wanted to be entertained quickly. Check out the new hot shit. Autobiographies for pop culture celebrities flew off the shelves as soon as they came in. Self-help books were still in high demand. Romance novels got many people through the loneliness still, and urban lit, to my dismay, had a damned waiting list. I took advantage of all of it, of course. But if I didn't make it to the history section every 2 weeks, I felt like my purpose in life wasn't being fulfilled. I had to laugh as I stopped in front of the book enclosure that Maya wanted me to consider. I hated history when I was in school. This was different, though. This I could relate to. I bent down and lovingly demanded of Maya, "Give me mine, now." This was our little game. Probably the most defiant she ever was, at least with me. She leaned in until her nose was touching mine. "Well, what if you can't have it now?" I shook my head briskly, never breaking contact, so that our noses rubbed together and countered. "Well, then you better give me a good reason why I can't." She growled in a cartoonish little voice, pressing her face closer so that our noses bent a little. "'Cause my kisses belong to me." I pulled back in mock surprise and then feigned pain, clutching at my heart with my hand. But, didn't your mama ever teach you to share?" Game over. She threw her arms around my neck and pop kissed in an arc along my forehead, whispering, "You gonna listen to that book now?" before releasing me. Yep, Then we're off to the children's section, Kay. She danced in a circle while whisper chanting, all right, 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 on and on, Andre 3000 style. I readjusted the listening pod that had gotten jostled out of place, stood up, and placed my hand on the summary pad and felt the mild jolt. I was connected. I closed my eyes. I must have listened about 7 or 8 minutes, 8 summaries before Maya bumped into me accidentally on purpose because she was ready to go to the children's section. I looked down at her and pulled my hand away from the pad. You like that one, Gma? We gonna take that one home today? I just nodded, and she raced on to the next step. She knew it by heart. She walked up to the librarian and smiled. The librarian smiled back warmly and waited for me to reach the counter. You know the terms and conditions for book checkout, yes? You know I do. We must go through this. Must we go through this every time? I rolled my eyes at her because she was a professional, no doubt, but I'd also seen her be a bit of a bitch. She must have a love for the books because this was her chosen career. But there were times I got the feeling she didn't really love the books. And that was a problem for me. They were our treasures, our connections to the past, our guides for the future. She turned the register monitor so that I could see the price and pay. I winced internally and did a quick calculation of this month's budget. I might not be able to get another book before next month. That troubled me. Are you taking her to the children's section? Huh? Are you? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. We're heading there now. Please punch in the time that you want your book ready for pickup. I figured Maya could easily spend an hour in there and set an hour from now as the pickup time. Great. Your book will be ready in 1 hour at pickup cubicle 12. Please be ready to present your ID at that time. Maya had been such a good girl. She didn't interrupt once while I conducted my transaction. Now she spoke. How long do I got, Gma? Have. You have 1 hour. Cool. She raced past the guard, but not before sticking her tongue out at him, and ran into the children's section and plopped down on the mat like the other children since story time was about to start. I sat down on the bench just outside of the children's section archway and looked over at the book enclosure, now empty. The hour went by in a blur of people watching, absent-minded flipping through the bullshit magazines on the little table in front of me and scrolling through all of the fuck shit that social media had to offer. Story time had finished about 20 minutes earlier, and Maya, as usual, was running around with a squad of new friends. I knew that I would have to hurl 50 rejections for her pleadings about when these little boisterous strangers could visit. I wasn't that type of grandmother. Trust. She knew it too, but it was kid law that you had to ask. I went to pick up cubicle 12 without her, so as not to overwhelm. The young brother responsible for getting my signature on the paperwork was the color of soy sauce, deeply brown with a sheen and immaculately fitted in a simple dress shirt and slacks. I handed him my receipt and he smiled and handed the clipboard to me. I'd done this a million times, but still asked if there had been any revision to policy. Not this month. Everything's the same. I guess if we figure it ain't broke, we don't got to fix it. And winked. Great. I scribbled my signature along the lines on 3 pages, returned it to him, and he handed me the copies. Thanks so much, ma'am. Unless you have any questions about the last page, please sit on the chair facing the monitor, press the green record button, and read the instructions for care aloud. Then state your full name and today's date, and then say end, and your selection will be with us by the time you're done. I appreciated their efficiency. It was necessary. This was a tremendous undertaking. And though you were provided with nearly everything you would need, it was important that they didn't enable you to claim, well, I didn't see that part. No, they got you on video seeing it. Every cubicle was staffed with personnel that were personable, professional, thorough, and patient. You were encouraged to ask as many questions as necessary to ensure there was no confusion about taking the absolute best care of your book before leaving. They were timely. Right after I said end and got up from the chair, and the caretaker had my book ready. I stepped forward slowly. It was important that you ease into the checkout process. Even with all of the preparation beforehand, the last thing you wanted to do was frighten and agitate. Hi, Miss Layla. It's so nice to meet you. My granddaughter, Maya, you'll meet her in just a few, is so happy that you're going to spend time with us. I'm happy that you're spending time with us. Is it okay if I shake your hand? Miss Lila extended her hand and smiled confidently. Nice to meet you, too. I hope we don't have to ride too far. I don't really like a whole lot of travel. Sitting too long bothers my hip. Miss Lila's eyes scanned me warmly. She was truly beautiful. Thick, kinky gray hair styled into a cloud. Her afro deified her somehow. She was of medium build and sturdy. If it hadn't been for the gray hair and the generous lines of age that mapped along her pretty face, you wouldn't imagine that she would be in the history section of the library. I, I placed my hand, palm up, directly beneath hers, and covered the top of her hand with mine. She was warm, and I could feel exactly where you could accurately guess her age. The skin of her hands was soft but loose, allowing you to feel the knotted areas of fingers curved by arthritis. When I removed my hands, I couldn't help but look down at hers. Yes, there was the imprint of time. Are you ready to meet my granddaughter Maya now? She chuckled. I suppose so. I mean, that's how it has to happen, doesn't it? I took her bag from the caretaker, double checked to make sure that I had tucked the papers into my purse, and lightly touched Miss Lila's back to guide her in the direction of the children's section. Maya spotted us and came bounding forward to meet her. Maya talked Miss Lila's ear off all the way home. She didn't seem to mind. At times, she would close her eyes and settle deeply into the seat while still answering all of Maya's questions, until I asked for her to take it down a notch. We had her for 10 business days. There was time. Once I parked, I asked Miss Lila to wait for just a second as I reached into the back seat to get her bag and let Maya out. Once I helped Miss Lila out of the car, we headed toward the house. This part always seemed the longest. Every once in a while, there would be a glitch in the stability chip, and the book could become disoriented, frightened, and so resistant that they may try to run. It was rare, but it could happen, and that's what made the walk such a long one. The libraries hadn't determined why the glitches happened, or more specifically, why they only happened just prior to entry. We were only ever told that they were working diligently to correct it. I'd never experienced a glitch with any of my books, but had heard some harrowing stories. The last thing I wanted was to take Miss Lila through that, or have any book suffer through that, ever. We went inside without an issue, and it was only then that I realized I'd been holding my breath. Maya held her hand as I walked Miss Lila down the hallway leading to the study. This is where I do most of my reading, Miss Lila, but that's not set in stone. I'm happy to read with you wherever you're most comfortable. Just let me know, okay? Miss Lila's fingers traced along the wall as she walked, the other hand in Maya's, and replied, "We'll figure it out as we go. You've got a really lovely home. I think it reminds me of somewhere." She stopped briefly and for the first time looked troubled. "But I can't exactly say where that might be." My heart raced a bit, and I tried to divert her attention quickly. "I hope it reminds you of every place you were ever happy and loved. And I hope that was lots of places, Miss Lila." She seemed satisfied with that, nearly whispering, "Yes, happy," and resumed her trek. "And on your right, this is your room. I'm putting your bag in here, and you have your own bathroom, and the monitor is on the nightstand. Just press the green button and tell me how I can be of assistance. If there's anything you need, use it, please. Don't ever be shy about that, okay?" She chuckled again. "Baby, I've been many things in life, and shy ain't never been a third cousin twice removed to none of them." I laughed. That was it. That fire. You could hear it in their summaries. It's what made me decide that she was the one. Are you cool with Maya hanging out with you for a bit? I really wanted to start dinner. All of your faves: smoked turkey wings, collard greens, wild rice, and we're going to top it off with peach cobbler. Is that all right? Miss Lila sat down on the bed and Maya slid smoothly onto her lap and hugged her. Girl, is that all right? You might have checked me out, but check you out. We laughed together this time, and Maya, not one to be left out, cackled like a loon, even though she really didn't get the joke. Okay, great. Maya, pace yourself. Do you understand? You've got 20 minutes with Miss Lila, and then you can join me in the kitchen and help. Got it? Yes, Jima. Miss Lila, I'll be right back. Her voice trailing off as she bolted out of the room to get toys to bring in and show Miss Lila. I changed into some comfy clothes, washed my hands, and then went into the kitchen to preheat the oven and start prepping. Alexa, play the best of 90s hip hop. It wasn't long before the music became a droning buzz. Alexa, stop. I keep forgetting. Alexa, stop. Let me run that back. I changed into some comfy clothes, washed my hands, and then went into the kitchen to preheat the oven and start prepping. Music device? Play the best of 90s hip hop. It wasn't long before the music became a droning buzz as a backdrop to food prep that I could conduct while in a coma, and I found myself thinking about what our libraries had become. I never knew exactly why it had happened, but I was glad that it did. The protest for the elders changed everything. Lives were lost, but it was still incredible. It was a thing I never thought I would see happen in my lifetime. I don't know if the ancestors got tired of our shit and parted the heavens and seas to accost the collective conscience of our youth or what. All I know is that shit got real, and it got real quick. I remember that they set it off on social media. There was just an out of nowhere movement where there had been so many posts on Twitter about how black elders were being treated, discarded, and disrespected. Personally, I felt like author J. Long's short story, The Last Black Girl, was the catalyst. It was like, after that, we start assessing every single one of our wrongs and righting them. I could remember one tweet in particular by someone who went by Fuck What You Heard 27 on Twitter. We need their knowledge still, even with all we know. So you mean to tell me that you pussy assholes just gonna let them burn all our books? It was aggressive. It was a bitch slap, to be truthful, and it was glorious. It was also shared over 2 million times. Petitions were formed, protests were organized, roads were blocked, government buildings were stormed, and it seemed that for everybody that was dropped, I mean, come on, we knew there would be a consequence. How could we not? Legions rose up to stand in their stead. I was terrified for them and so goddamn proud of them. Legislation went into effect that started with the nursing homes and the horrors they uncovered, all of the neglect. I cried until I felt that I had to have used up the last of my tears. Even with that, even with all the youngins changed, and it was being changed for the ones that were unaccounted. Even with all that the youngins changed, it was being changed for the ones that were accounted for, the ones with family, no matter how neglectful. I mean, yeah, they were held accountable. Many were fined for using nursing homes and senior citizens as dumping grounds, and an inordinate amount are serving sentences. But once the smoke cleared, we realized we still had work to do. The homeless elders, the ones with no family, no one to even care about their whereabouts. What of them? That sparked a whole new movement. Housing structures were funded and built for all the ones able to benefit from financial assistance and therapy with barely a noticeable hit to our taxes. We didn't mind. We didn't mind one bit. But there were others, many of them, suffering from Alzheimer's, dementia, stroke victims, and every other imaginable deterioration that comes with living a long while on this rock. Thank goodness for the consortium of physicians, scientists, microbiologists, and every other ist in existence that banded together and worked tirelessly until they achieved breakthroughs in slowing the progression of the more debilitating diseases. They called the project Book, Bearers of Omniloquent Knowledge. Legislation was approved for insertion of the stability chip, a time-lapse device that, once implanted into the elder subjects, enabled them to retain their most recent thought processes for 12 to 14 days. The consortium was hopeful that they could extend that eventually. Insertion was mandatory, virtually painless, and closely regulated. Every tech agency moved into action and construction took place to add on to every library in the States, and living, breathing history sections were created. There's a weekly cataloging of conversations with the elders that gets edited into soundbite summaries of their recollections. The stability chip allows those conversations and memories to remain static until the eventual reversal. They speak about everything, from the civil rights movement to music to romance, everything. They lived it. These elders truly were our books, the vessels for so many memories, their individual truths, and we needed that. Even my extra grown ass still has so much more to learn. These conversations are then uploaded to the summary pads, and we can listen and decide who will share space with us, so that we can drink of their knowledge, and so they get to experience a sense of belonging. The books are well taken care of. The government does not want another uprising, but more are forthcoming. The elders are housed in fiberglass book enclosures, pods that work as two-way mirrors. They know we can see in during operating hours, but it at least gives the illusion of privacy. The pods are beautifully furnished, albeit minimally, and they have facilities on the top level for showering, sleep, and everything else. Of course, it always got to a point where whatever they were suffering from would lay final claim. That couldn't be helped. That's the fate for all of us. But at least they didn't have to live in fear any longer, wondering if they'd eat today, wondering if they'd be able to shower, and wondering if they'd even be able to find a place to rest weary bones. They were sharing their wisdom with us, and we were becoming better. It's why I checked out a new book every 10 days. I owed them that much. Maya's time was just about up. She only had, she only had, she only had, oh God, she only had what? I breathed deeply and looked out the kitchen window. I would not cry. No, not for at least 10 days. I enjoyed the company. I loved that Maya was learning from our elders in such an amazing way. Hell, I didn't have much longer before I could officially be considered one my damn self. Maya, Maya, Maya. Yes, that's good. I just wish I could remember the name of the fucking book. I slammed my fist down on the counter, and my curious little Maya made a beeline for the kitchen. The doctor told me this would happen with greater frequency, and it was. I applied for my pod months ago and was approved. They can't very well reject the inevitable, can they? Chima, what you doing? I scooped her up into my embrace. Nothing, baby. Just cooking. Can you go get Miss Lila? Maya blessedly finished for me, because I was about to refer to her as the book. Yes. Go get Miss Lila, and then get your apron so she can read to us while we cook. I watched her scuttle off and mumbled to myself, early onset. Ain't that a bitch? I'd have to tell my doctor that the forgetfulness is happening more and more. I'd better write it down. Soon, cooking for my granddaughter will be something I can't trust myself to do unattended. My kind can't be around here burning shit down. but at least we stopped burning our books. And thus endeth the story. So that was my favorite short story, The Library by Terry A. Meredith. And you can see what I was talking about. She doesn't give us a lot of detail. The author takes more time constructing the world of the library, but she gives us a whiff, a hint of the backstory of a powerful and sudden revolution. And I think that's one of the things that I really love about that revolution. You know, when we were children, I don't know why that came out like that. Like I was summoning Morgan Freeman. When we were children, but when we were children, we were taught, some of us, about the shot heard round the world. Some of us who remember Schoolhouse Rock might remember it was a shot heard round the world. It was the start of the revolution. We're taught that a single gunshot started the Revolutionary War. And that shot, because of the result, was the shot heard round the world. What I love that Ms. Meredith does in this story is she gives us the tweet heard round the world. I am 43, and I have wondered so many times, what's going to be the shot? What's going to be the shot that is heard around the world that starts the undeniable revolution? I don't cotton much, pun intended, to a lot of the teachings of American history because we have this habit as a nation of celebrating the vandals and the scoundrels as long as they're not black or brown or red or yellow or any of the other colors that we ascribe to people who aren't pink and translucent. The vandals who threw a bunch of leaves in the bay, literally for the time, hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue, damage, lost. We celebrate them. We celebrate all the vandals. So I don't cotton too much to American history, but one of the things that I do dig about the way this history is told is that one of the things that they keep mentioning is how America really didn't stand a fucking chance. It was a bunch of ragtag motherfuckers with minimal military training, working with a young general who was more cocky than he was accomplished, fighting their fight because they believed that hard. And what happened was they started fighting that fight because they believed that hard. And the way the story is told, other nations were like, wait, hold on, look over there. Oh, they really actually doing this shit. Yo, send them some boats, B. Hey. They gonna need some gunpowder, yo. Get a ship over there with some gunpowder. But that wasn't gonna happen until they saw the fight happening. The fight, they had to see the fight. They had to see these little scandalous ass rapscallions going toe to toe with an army and a navy that was far, far greater than their mere muskets. And when they saw that, they said, oh shit, this fight is real. We're not gonna let them just go out like that. And I wonder what the shot is gonna be that makes the fight real. And that upon seeing that real fight, the other brown nations who are sick of America's shit too say, you know what? Let's send some people. Let's get some stuff through. Oh, it's for sure, by every definition, a losing proposition. And yet here we are sitting in this fucked up nation formed by some people who fought a losing proposition. America loves a fucking underdog story. Who's more underdog than us? They're gonna love us in the morning. I love y'all. I believe in you. Every single one of you who are taking the time to sit here and listen to some dude who got nothing better to do on a Thursday night than read stories. I love you and I believe in you. And that means I believe in magic. And I believe that magic works. So prove me right. I saw that there were some comments celebrating Sister Meredith, and so I want to go ahead and bring some of those to the screen because she is worthy of that celebration. The story moves me every damn time too. Joker nailed that one. I'm just gonna. I mean, I can read them out loud, but y'all literate. Y'all can read it. Mimi Brown says, "I love this story." Angela Lee Rains, hey, good to see you. Angela says, "Beautiful again, Terry." That was amazing. Terry Meredith, is this you? That is the Terry Meredith right here. Mika Poppins getting the eye sweats. Me too. Me too. The way that this resonated for my mom made it particularly potent and powerful and bittersweet for me. And I think that contributes even more to my love for this story, my continued love for this story. Even sharper, my second read. Well, thank you. Thank you. Terry herself says, as always, you bring a beauty to my work that I can't even imagine to manage to see on my own. Thank you. It is unequivocally my pleasure. It is absolutely my pleasure. Amanda says, this is such a beautiful story. L Jack, loquacious as always, verbose motherfucker. Just long ass comments. You killed that shit, Terry. I love you, big homie. I'm really glad you're here. I really am. I'm really glad you're here. Akanke figured it out. Now wait, hold on. What you want to know, Terry Meredith? Because I don't know what secret I accidentally held. But yeah. Yes, Terry does indeed do that. She do that. Oh, what the shot will be? Yeah, I want to know. Kamisha's telling me, wrap it up, B. Wrap it up. And it's probably about that time. Yo, it's exactly that time. It's 11:14 going on 11:15. Look at us. Look at us maintaining some normalcy. This has been Storytime with Julian and the pre-read. I am that Julian. If you came in late and you want to catch the whole thing, I would recommend that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. All you got to do is go onto YouTube and type in Storytime with Julian. It should be the first thing that pops up. You should also look for us on Twitter. You can find us at Storytime Julian, and we're also on the Instagram. On some occasions when I'm not feeling too sure about whether or not I'm going to read, I may not put up a promo. I don't even know if you guys are watching the promos or the recaps. I will do them as often as I can, but sometimes sometimes I'm just going to dive into it and try to create the space around us rather than, build up a framework and a structure. Sometimes it's better to just let it happen organically. This does go live on Twitter. It does go live on YouTube. It does go live on Facebook. It will only be preserved on YouTube. And soon you'll start seeing some of the back episodes of that. There's a few more comments coming in. So let me go ahead and read those real quick, and then we'll sign off for the night. We are indeed magical. You are right about that, Angela. And thank you for that, Yafa. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you, Saniqua. Thank you so much for that comment. Um, I get it. I get it. I think all of us have reasons to relate to that story, and that's part of what renders the beauty in it for sure. Um, yeah. Erica says she misses her Nana, and I feel that. I feel that. We've talked a little bit about it. I feel it, and I understand. Um, it is, and that's one of the reasons why the ones that stay and fight mean so much to me. Um, yeah, yeah. We are streaming on Twitter, so you can share there. You know what, Mimi? Me too. That's why I did this. I went off schedule, and my editorial board's probably mad at me, or at least a little bit annoyed. But I needed this too, for real, for real. Here's the information on our YouTube channel. You ain't even got to do all that extra work now. It is now www.youtube.com/C// storytime with Julian. That is the new link because we got enough subscribers to do that. But please subscribe. We need more subscribers. I really want to build this thing out and share it. For those of you all who truly loved that story of the library, and that's really got to be all of you, we want you to bless our griot, Terry Meredith. You can tip your griot at can I get the editors to please put up that tip jar link for Terry A. Meredith. We absolutely believe in supporting our artists, and giving them props is definitely a kind of support. But let me tell you something, there is no kind of support like that little clack, 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 clack noise coming from your phone. You feel me? You understand what I'm saying? And she is absolutely worthy of it. So please drop that donation. It could be $1, but if everybody who listened gave $1, yo, that's a nice lunch. That's a nice dinner right there. So let's make that happen. All right. Mimi Brown said, I need some more of her art. Well, if you need some more of her art, Mimi Brown, I just told you what to do. I told you what to do. Oh, you meant her painting art. Yes, because Terry Meredith is also a visual artist. She is responsible for that. That, hold up, there, that she did that. And no matter which side of my recording space I'm on, there is always a Terry Meredith piece available in the background. Akanke said that she needed this magic tonight. Me too. Me too. And I needed y'all tonight. Like seriously, I said in the title, I need a vibe, and y'all brought it, and I appreciate that. Like I really feel the love. If I can get again, there we go. Thank you so much, Kamisha Umstead, for posting. Let's put that up. This right here is how you can cash app a blessing to our griot, Sister Terry Meredith. I say sister because she like my sister, but also because it's always kind of church up in here, whether I mean for it to be or not, right? Um, Again, let's go ahead. We got the official STWJ version of the link. But yeah, yeah, yeah. Make sure that you bless her real good. It's $ Terry Speaks, and you're looking for Terry Meredith. This is it, y'all. Hey, Sancha, good to see you. Thank you for coming out. Um, Go ahead and make sure you bless your griot. I'm going to call it an evening. I might check in for an after story for a little bit. We can go ahead and open up a room. But after this, I'm pretty much going to chill. Thank you so much for being a blessing for me tonight. Like I said, I believe in you because you're magic. That means I believe in magic, and I believe that magic works. So let's get to work. That's story time, y'all. Peace.